Thomas Jefferson grew up certain his roots traced to the mountains of Wales. But when a team of scientists challenged that family legend, DNA testing delivered an answer even more surprising. His paternal line belonged to one of the rarest Y chromosome types in Europe, with origins stretching back 25,000 years. Only 2 men in Britain today share that genetic signature, and both come from regions Jefferson never imagined. What those results reveal changes the story completely. Jefferson's belief in a Welsh origin ran deep. He wrote of an ancestor from Wales near Mount Snowdon, and his father named their Virginia plantation Snowdon as a tribute. For generations, the family repeated this story with pride, weaving it into the fabric of their identity. But family traditions, no matter how cherished, sometimes rest on shaky ground. Historians and genealogists began searching for proof. They combed through parish registers, land deeds, and probate records across Wales, looking for any sign of a Jefferson family near Snowdon. The result was silence. No Jeffersons in the parish rolls, no land holdings, no wills, no sign that anyone by that name had ever lived in the shadow of Snowdon. The paper trail ended before it began. Annette Gordon-Reed, a leading Jefferson scholar, has pointed out how powerful family myths can be. In Jefferson's case, the Welsh connection shaped his self-image, but it never matched the evidence. The absence of records wasn't for lack of trying. Researchers scoured archives in both Britain and America, hoping for a link that would anchor the story in fact. Nothing surfaced. The family's migration to Virginia in the 17th century is well documented, but the path before that is a mystery. Without records in Wales, the trail grows cold. The name Jefferson itself is English in origin, more common in the Midlands and Yorkshire than in the hills of northern Wales. Still, the legend persisted, repeated in biographies and family histories for more than 2 centuries. By the turn of the 21st century, the Welsh tradition was running on faith alone. The historical dead end forced researchers to look elsewhere. If the records couldn't answer the question, perhaps science could. DNA testing offered a new way to trace ancestry, a chance to follow the Jefferson line not through words and deeds, but through the silent code passed from father to son. The search for answers was about to leave the world of parchment and enter the world of molecules. In 2007, a team at the University of Leicester set out to answer the question that documents could not. Led by geneticist Tory King, the researchers gathered DNA samples from 85 British men bearing the surname Jefferson or its close variants. Their goal was simple: find out if any of these men shared the same Y chromosome signature as Thomas Jefferson's documented male line descendants in Virginia. The laboratory process hinged on a method called YSTR network analysis. This technique focuses on short repeating segments of the Y chromosome, markers passed almost unchanged from father to son. If 2 men share enough of these markers, it points to a shared male ancestor, even if the family connection is lost to history. Out of all the men tested, only 2 matched the exact YSTR profile carried by Jefferson's family. One traced his paternal line to Yorkshire, the other to the West Midlands. Both families had been rooted in those regions for generations, with no known ties to Wales and no connection to each other, aside from the shared surname. This result was striking. Among 85 men, only 2 carried the rare genetic marker, mirroring the estimated frequency of less than 1% for this lineage across Europe. The rest of the British Jeffersons belonged to entirely different Y chromosome groups, showing the surname had arisen independently in multiple places. But these 2 men, separated by geography and unaware of any link to America, were genetic kin to Thomas Jefferson. The odds of such a match by chance are vanishingly small. The study's findings were decisive. The Y chromosome evidence pointed not to Wales, but to the English heartland. The paper trail had run cold, but the DNA left no doubt. Jefferson's paternal ancestry was English, anchored in the Midlands and Yorkshire. The family legend, so carefully preserved and repeated, had been overturned by science. And the marker itself, Haplogroup T, stood out as a rare signature, a genetic outlier among British and American men alike. The next question: where did this unusual lineage come from, and how did it find its way into the Jefferson family tree? Haplogroup T traces its origins to the ancient Near East, with genetic evidence pointing back some 25,000 years. The earliest known carriers lived in what is now Jordan, where DNA from a man buried at Ain Ghazal over 10,000 years ago matches this lineage. Archaeologists have also found T in early Bronze Age remains, proof that this paternal line persisted through waves of migration and cultural change. The story of T is tied closely to the dawn of agriculture. Around 8,000 years ago, as people in the Fertile Crescent began cultivating wheat and barley, some of these early farmers carried T as they moved west. They brought not just seeds and livestock, but also their genes, spreading out from the Levant into Anatolia and then across the Mediterranean. Sarah T. Miller, who studies ancient DNA from prehistoric sites, explains that the Neolithic expansion was a turning point. Farming families traveled by land and sea, their descendants settling in new lands far from their ancestral homes. Over centuries, carriers of tea joined the great movement of people who transformed Europe's landscape, introducing settled villages and new ways of life. By the time these lineages reached the western edge of Europe, they had already been shaped by thousands of years of migration and adaptation. The marker found in Jefferson's line is a relic of this deep past, a rare signature that survived the rise and fall of empires, passing quietly from father to son. Its journey from the Near East to Britain set the stage for the next chapter, how such an ancient lineage managed to take root on an island at the edge of the continent. Across the world, Haplogroup T threads through populations separated by thousands of miles and years. In the Mediterranean, its presence stands out in places shaped by ancient trade and migration. On the island of Ibiza, about 15% of men carry this lineage, a frequency unmatched anywhere else in Europe. In Cadiz, at the southwestern tip of Spain, it is nearly 10%. Greece and southern Italy, crossroads of history since the age of Homer, show rates around 4%. These numbers are striking, given that in most of Europe, fewer than 1 in 100 men share this genetic signature. The reach of tea extends far beyond Europe. Among the Fulani herders of Cameroon, nearly 1 in 5 men belong to this lineage. In Somalia, entire clans trace their paternal roots through tea. The same marker appears in India and Pakistan, scattered across South Asia. Yet these are not signs of recent contact or shared family ties. The connections run deeper, stretching back to a time before written language, before borders, before nations. Population geneticists like Mark Jobling caution against reading too much into these patterns. Sharing a rare Y chromosome marker does not mean shared ancestry within recorded history. Instead, it reflects the legacy of a small group of men whose descendants fanned out across continents over tens of thousands of years. Jefferson's paternal line is one thread in this vast human tapestry, rare in Europe, common in only a handful of places, and woven through a story that began long before the first Jefferson set foot in Virginia. The story of his Y chromosome is not just about a family or a name, but about the migrations and mingling that shaped the modern world. Today, genetic science can rewrite centuries of family lore in a single test. As DNA continues to unlock hidden histories, even icons like Jefferson remind us that our deepest roots may surprise us and connect us all to stories far older than any nation. What does your DNA reveal?